Hi there, and welcome to Press to Think, where our goal is to look at the intersection of psychology and video games, to see how they interact, and to look for places where the former can help the latter. My name's James, and Matt is providing the animation you're watching.
Hey.
Now, before I go into anything, I think it's important to say that I am by no means an expert. There are other folks out there with more credits to their name, or letters after them. I would perhaps call myself an informed reader.
Well, I make no such claim.
So then, let's talk about close relationships in games. This seems to be something that games can really polarize people on, where on the one hand you'll have some games with beloved romances, and others still where the player base would rather throttle the supposed love interest than save them. Before we can talk about how to do this better, let's take a look at what can make it so awful. And one possible culprit is...
Games written by awkward nerds?
Actually, I was going to say social exchange theory. As a side note, to make this easy, I'm just going to refer to any love interests as she from now on, given the overwhelming preference for this gender setup in games. For everyone out there who prefers the romantic company of men, or others, rest assured that this applies equally across the board. Social exchange theory is the idea that, consciously or not, we all keep track of the costs and benefits of our relationships with others. On the one hand, you've got all the things that you get out of your relationship, things like affection, financial assistance, emotional support, or sex. On the other hand, you've got all the things you put into the relationship, your time, emotional and material resources, sex. Generally speaking, if this equation works out in your favor, you're much more likely to look favorably on the relationship, provided you don't think you could be doing better. More on that later. Unfortunately, a lot of games run into a fundamental problem here, where your romantic interest is often a huge burden on the player, and provides very little in return. Perhaps she's been abducted, and now you're off on a long and difficult quest to rescue her. Worse, she might even be a vulnerable NPC you have to protect from the seemingly endless hordes of your enemies. So now you've got someone you need to bend over backwards for, and who generally doesn't offer you much in return. In a lot of games, the affection and romance you'd expect from such a relationship is largely implied, or worse, left to be assumed after the game's completion. Given this setup, it's not hard to see why no one liked, say, any of the friends in GTA 4.
Hey James, wanna go play some darts? How about some pool? Strip club? You're not wearing that, are you?
But, as some of you might be thinking, this isn't the full story. Take Yorda from Eco as an example. If ever there was a case of a problematic relationship from a social exchange standpoint, this is it. Yorda is helpless, and must be constantly shepherded around the game and protected from the shadowy clutches of your enemies. Yet, despite this, Eco has a huge following, and a lot of gamers felt really positively towards Yorda. Why is this? Well, to find out, let's look at all the other characters in Eco. Remember that part about if you could be doing better I mentioned earlier? In social exchange theory, this is known as your comparison level for alternatives. Essentially, while you're looking at what you're getting out of a relationship, you're also looking around to see who else you might prefer. In Eco, Yorda wasn't just your only love interest. She was the only other living thing that wasn't trying to kill you through the course of play. This kind of situation can go a long ways towards balancing the scales. Comparison level can also do interesting things in games where there are alternatives. Look at the original Mass Effect. A lot of people really didn't like either of the female romantic options in this game. They came across as insecure or needy, and pursuing either of them meant pissing off the other. These are not insignificant costs to the relationship. But, you know who didn't suffer from either of those problems? Tali. Despite not even being visible under her encounter suit, and not actually being a romantic option for the players, compared to the other ladies in the game, Tali seemed like a far better choice. In fact, her fan base was large enough to get her included as a real romantic option in the sequel, whereas Liara and Ashley were removed as both romantic options and playable characters, for that matter. Social exchange theory in action. Well, that's all the time I have for now. Join us next episode when we'll look a little more at some of the pitfalls games fall into, and to start thinking about ways to make close relationships in games better. Until then, keep thinking.